Snowdrifts crowded the ridges above Riverrun like silent, watchful wolves the morning the Tyrell banners appeared on the southern horizon. The crimson-robed courtiers of House Tully stirred first, sentinels crying the alarm from the barbican. But the camp of the young wolf was already half awake, men struggling into boiled leather brigandines while thin winter sun slid over the tumblestone. Robb Stark himself had slept little. Word had come ahead that a highborn party rode under the golden rose and the silver trout entwined. The frigid night air still clung to his limbs as he pulled on a doublet of gray wool sewn with the dire wolf sigil, thinking of swords and treaties, of fathers dead and false kings crowned. Margaery Tyrell dismounted beyond the drawbridge in a swirl of dark green velvet, her cheeks pink from the ride, her brown hair pinned beneath a fur-lined hood too southern for such latitudes. She moved like a promise, soft summer transplanted into the teeth of winter, and every night along the battlements felt the hush that followed her footsteps. Behind her came Ser Loras, gleaming in plate so polished the gray sky bent across it, and her grandmother, Lady Olenna, sharp-eyed beneath a knitted mantle of vines and thorns. The procession halted before the great doors of Riverrun's keep, and Robb descended the steps alone, boots crunching on frost, gray wind pacing at his side. The direwolf's muzzle twitched, no growl, only the measured breath of a beast weighing strangers by invisible scents. Margaery regarded the wolf with a calm that surprised Robb. She inclined her head, unafraid, as gray wind circled, then returned her gaze to the king in the north. "Your Grace," she said, voice clear and steady as the tumblestones flow. "Lady Margaery." He dipped his head in turn. Words hung between them, each aware that every overshadowed courtyard stone was witness. Behind Robb stood Catelyn Stark, her grief-hardened poise wrapped in Tully blue. She studied the rows of Highgarden as one might study an incoming tide, beautiful, unstoppable, and cold. Robb heard the rustle of steel as bannermen shifted. Lord Karstark, Lord Umber, even Edmure, his uncle, fidgeted with ceremonial gloves. 100 northern hopes whispered that this union, if union it became, could weave a shield of southern grain and gold around the direwolf's rebellion. 100 more feared the price. The parley lasted 3 days, each dawn accompanied by the scent of Tyrell's spiced wine, wafting through the halls that once housed warmth and laughter before the whisper of war. Lady Olenna commanded the long table like a battle-tested admiral, skewering points as neatly as any knight skewered foes. She questioned provisions. How would Highgarden feed the north when river traffic must breach the Iron Throne's blockades? She negotiated dowries measured not only in coin but in garrons and grist, in greenbowies for the fields of the reach and timber felled from Wolfswood to rebuild smashed longships. Catelyn traded glances with her son, reading the swirl of ambition in Tyrell eyes. Loras made candid boasts of placing Renly's Rainbow Guard beneath the direwolf banner if needed. Scars of his fallen king still gleamed inside his pride. Robb listened with the composure he had learned upon his father's knee, curiosity gilded with the steel of fresh responsibility. In his mind marched the shades of Talisa Maegor, brown eyes, bold voice, hands that cooled fevers, but he stifled that ache. The north bled. His heart was no forge, no matter how flame-bright his feelings burned. That first evening, after goblets emptied and the solar thrummed with polite exhaustion, Robb walked the ramparts with Margaery. Moonlight caught the snows along the riverbanks, turning white into quicksilver. She moved lightly beside him, gloved hand brushing the crenellations. "My brother Renly would have liked you, Your Grace," she murmured. Robb felt the chill deepen, not in the air but within. "I would have liked to have known him beyond banners and rumor." Margaery's breath misted. "Would you have liked the man he was, or the king he tried to be?" "The man," Robb answered. "A king may be shaped by what those around him need. A man is revealed by what he gives when duty grows heavy." She studied him through half-veiled lashes. Behind her, torches flickered like the tongues of distant dragons, but no dragons would save them. No good queen on black wings, only choices. At last she said, "Then I pray you will see the woman I am, not the bride your bannermen crave." He wished to ask, "How can I, when war is a weight no vow can lift?" Yet the question died unheard. Gray wind patted ahead, tail a banner cut from night, and the chill turned softer, as if even winter paused to measure that fragile thread of possibility. When the pact was struck, it felt less like celebration and more like binding raw sinew to broken bone. Necessary, painful, yet promising a limb made whole. Riverrun's great hall shuddered with northern drums, while Tyrell minstrels tuned lutes painted with roses. Walder Frey's emissaries, two sullen granddaughters draped in fry gray, stood witness, their dismay palpable. The Lord of the Crossing had been counting on Robb's marriage promise to heal old slights. But Robb's queen would not be a fry. Lord Roose Bolton, face pale as melting snow, watched from the periphery, eyes like a candle guttering in still air. One could almost smell his silent calculations. Elsewhere, Lord Randall Tarley clapped steel-clad hands, stiff in his loyalty to Highgarden yet wary of northern wolves. Only the old gods and the seven knew which tempers would flare and which ambitions would bloom from this new seed. Robb and Margaery exchanged vows before a septon of the Reach and a heart tree transplanted long ago by Tully forebears. Two faiths kissing in hurried truce. The petals of a white rose lay upon a dire wolf pelt, her maiden's cloak of forest green replaced by the gray and white of House Stark. When the septon proclaimed them man and wife, trumpets sang, but beneath the thunder of applause Robb felt the floor tilt, as though he had stepped onto the narrowest of bridges. Duty, yes, but also possibility. Margaery's hand, slender as a raven's wing, clung to his. In her palm he sensed the promise of new alliances, of southern harvests filling winter stores, of songs yet unwritten. Queenship in the north demanded fortitude. Within a fortnight, Margaery rode with Robb for Winterfell, an escort of Tyrell knights trailing like a bright ribbon across the frost-bitten Kingsroad. Brienne of Tarth accompanied them, a silent tower on horseback, sworn first to Renly's memory and then to Margaery's safety. Snow began to fall in earnest south of Moat Cailin, and Lady Olenna's final words echoed, "Where fur, child, and where wisdom thicker still, the North remembers, and it forgets nothing." At Winterfell, the memories haunted stone corridors. Ned's stern laughter echoing between shuttered windows, Bran's climbing footsteps, Arya's wild shrieks, each a ghost Margaery bowed to with grace. She visited the crypts, descending dim steps with a single torch, and lingered before Lyanna Stark's statue. Winds moaned through unseen cracks, whispering of honor and sorrow tangled. "My lady," Robb's voice carried softly behind her. She turned, torchlight flickering across his face, bronze flecks dancing in the blue of his eyes. "I feared the chill would drive you back above. I needed to meet them," she answered. "The wolves who shaped the man I married." "They would have liked you," he said, and though he smiled, shadows pooled beneath his lashes. Margaery reached out and placed the torch into an iron bracket, freeing her hands. She brushed stone dust from Lyanna's marble fingers. "When I was a girl, the Reach seemed the heart of the world. The North was only a shape on a map. Now I feel how small our maps truly are." Robb caught her hand, drawing her toward Lyanna's silent face. "My aunt died for love that became a crown. I hope our crown becomes a love that outlives war." In that moment, the hush of crypt and snow alike folded around them, and Margaery kissed the young wolf for the first time with no courtly eyes to weigh their breath. The chill receded. Stone felt warmer. Ghosts, for a fleeting heartbeat, seemed to step back. The army of the North and Reach marched south by early thaw, banners of dire wolf and golden rose rippling side by side. Word reached them that Stannis Baratheon had laid siege to King's Landing's charred husk after wildfire and defeat had scorched the Blackwater. Renly's ghost guiding Stannis' fury. Tywin Lannister, unbowed, gathered forces in the west, hungry as a lion denied. Robb's council room in Harrenhal, freshly reclaimed, became a hive of accented voices. Lord Tarley argued for a swift thrust into the Westerlands, to sever Lannister gold at its source. Great Jon Umber roared to ride for the capital, break Stannis and claim the throne before Lannisters regrouped. Roose Bolton spoke seldom yet offered maps creased like a butcher's apron. Roads through the mountains, secret fords across the Trident. Margaery listened at Robb's right hand, her observations precise. When men shouted of spears and sorties, she spoke of grain stores, of the morale that rose with full bellies and songs of home. I have seen siege lines crumble from famine faster than from sword, she reminded them, voice unwavering. Break the Westerland's wheat before you break its walls. The council paused, surprised. Their queen had studied more than embroidery. Robb's silent nod gave her words steel. That night, beneath tattered arras of some long-dead lord, they laid new plans. Manderly ships would raid Lannisport's supply fleets. Karstark outriders would harry gold caravans. The Tyrell quartermasters would commandeer river barges to ferry northern harvests south, a lifeline strung through contested lands. In private, Robb confessed, "They see you now, not just the rose I married." Margaery clasped his jaw, smiling. "I will bloom in snow if snow is where we stand." He tasted that promise on her lips, snowmelt and summer wine mixing, and for a heartbeat war seemed far. Yet war crept even into wedding chambers. News reached them on raven wings. Walder Frey had sealed the twins against Stark passage, insulted that a Tyrell now wore the direwolf crown. Catelyn counseled appeasement. Edmure argued for force. Robb wrote letters heavy with conciliatory titles. Make the Freys masters of Maidenpool, name their sons captains of new royal guard, and dispatched Ser Brynden Tully to carry them. But Lady Olenna, pen scratching in candlelight, added a subtler stroke. A betrothal between one of her minor granddaughters and a Frey heir, dowry measured in gold candles and prestige, thorns disguised as petals. Meanwhile, Bolton summoned his own garrison to the Dreadfort with excuses of winter shoring, his pale smile never quite reaching his eyes. Robb felt the tremor of fracture within the alliance he'd forged. North, Riverlands, Reach each powerful, yet each holding blades behind their banners. Margaery saw his sleeplessness and bade old Nan's stories calm him. Yet even tales of giants and children of the forest could not drown the creak of shifting loyalties. In King's Landing, Cersei Lannister woke to a dream dripping wildfire. A wolf crowned with thorns tearing lions in half beneath a curtain of rose petals. She summoned Qyburn, demanded portents, wine, and whispers. She wrote letters to Walder Frey, fanning grievance like embers, to Balon Greyjoy, reminding him of northern shores ripe for reaving while their king campaigned far, to Littlefinger, coaxing his coin and cunning toward fractures yet invisible. Her uncle Tyrion, exiled after the Blackwater, sent warnings from Pentos, but she burned his missives unread. Stannis hammered at the gates. Famine gnawed. Still, Cersei clung to rumor that Tyrell wheat now fed Robb Stark's wolves, that Loras Lance waited not at her son's command but at Robb's flank. The Queen Regent tightened her grasp on Tommen, her last precious cub, and vowed that every breath of these traitors would pay for Joffrey's death and Myrcella's exile. Robb's spear point fell upon the Westerlands in late spring. Tarly led Reach heavy horse up the Gold Road while northern pikes advanced through rain-slick foothills, banners snapping like ribs cracked open. Highgarden's gold and green lines glimmered beneath mist, flanking gray waves of spearmen whose shields bore snarling wolves. The collision at the Mummers Ford smashed Lannister outriders, Ser Adam Marbrand barely escaping. Castamir's collapsed mine shafts echoed once more with screams as Tarly's men collapsed its entry tunnels, flooding the veins of silver long coveted by Lannister smiths. Margaery remained at Harrenhal, seated upon a makeshift wooden dais beneath scorched towers. She organized healers, tended ravens, walked among the wounded. Some soldiers called her Lady of Ash and Spring. Ash for Harrenhal's blackened bones, Spring for the bloom of hope that followed her steps. Gray wind prowled her shadow, a silent sentinel lending fong to her smile. Letters from Sansa Stark, still hostage in King's Landing, dripped fear onto brittle parchment. Margaery read them in lamplight, tears gathering only when alone. She concealed Sansa's pleas from Robb, fearing the weight might skew his sword arm, and instead sent back small comforts. Reach silk ribbons, dried peaches, prayers to the Seven. She coaxed Olenna to dispatch spies into the capital's shadowed alleys, seeking an escape route for the lone wolf cub among lions. It was in one such letter that Littlefinger's name surfaced again, a sharp thorn in a bouquet of politeness. He hinted at ships in Blackwater Bay willing to carry a maiden north if coin and crowns aligned. Margaery weighed the trap. She had heard the spider Varys speak of Littlefinger's ladders of chaos. She pressed hot wax over the message and set it ablaze, ash spiraling into torchlit gloom. The golden tooth fell after a siege of 21 days, its gilded crest bent beneath umber axes. Robb ordered safe conduct for small folk, looting only what the garrison surrendered. He toured the ramparts at dawn, noting rubble where once lion statues snarled. In the courtyard, Margaery's embroidered banners fluttered, gray and green entwined, proof that the Reach stood firm. Yet ravens from the neck brought darker tidings. Ironborn longships had struck Deepwood Motte, and Walder Frey's levies moved suspiciously east toward Seaguard. The war was not a line but a ring of daggers. At council that night, voices clashed louder than before. Lord Karstark, still grieving sons lost at the Whispering Wood, urged hanging every Lannister captive. Lord Tarly cautioned that to butcher noble prisoners invited equal response upon Stark cousins in the west. Roose Bolton spoke calmly of surgical replies, proposing a strike at Duskendale to unseat Crownland supplies. Margaery's suggestion cut through the debate. Send a herald to Baelor, the blessed September challenge Tywin Lannister to single combat for the fate of the realm. If he refuses, his honor erodes. If he accepts and falls, the lion's roar ends. The hall fell to murmurs. Robb's blue eyes held his queen's, seeing both bravery and brinksmanship. I will meet Lord Tywin on any field, he said, voice quiet. But cowards seldom walk where honor calls them. There are other thralls stronger than honor, she replied. Fear for one, and the fear of seeming afraid. Lord Tywin did not answer the challenge. Instead, his cousin Ser Stafford raised fresh levies near Oxcross, only to have them cut down by Greatjon's midnight assault. Each victory slogged through mud and blood that clung to Robb's boots like questions. How many sons will widows curse my name for? How many winters will rise before this harvest of death ends? In Harrenhal, Margaery birthed a new council of quills. Septa Felice to oversee prayer for fallen of all faiths, Maester Vyman to treat ravaged minds with herbs brewed from Reach Gardens. Even Brienne, reluctant, accepted charge of drill for orphan girls wielding short swords so they might flee brigands. She wrote to Horn Hill, commanding her father Lord Mace to dispatch cordials against flux, seeds for cold-resistant barley, tutors for reading. Word of these gentler battles traveled faster than ravens, borne on tongues eased by warm bread. Small folk along the Trident began sewing half-roses onto ragged cloaks, a sign they would feed Stark men should they pass. Some named the Queen Maid of Mercy, though others whispered of Tyrell intrigues. Would she trade the North to save her flowers if Southern sun demanded it? Grey Wind sensed tension more keenly than any spy. One night he snarled outside Roose Bolton's quarters, teeth bared until Margaery arrived, hand upon his ruff. Bolton emerged, eyes pools of winter sky. A singular beast, he observed. A shame wolves cannot be taught subtler arts than tearing throats. They speak plainly enough, Margaery answered, soothed only when Bolton's door shut with a soft click. Spring tipped into summer. The war ground on. Sansa escaped the capital disguised as a street urchin, shepherded by one of Olenna's agents through hidden postern gates. Ravens bearing her safe arrival in Maidenpool nearly made Robb weep at council, though before his lords he merely bowed his head. Margaery kissed the tears that night in their tent of storm-gray canvas. You save worlds I cannot reach, he whispered. It takes a garden, she gently teased, to remind a wolf why spring returns. Yet summer held other news. Joffrey Baratheon lay dead, poisoned at a feast, and blame scattered like dice across the board. Cersei howled for the Rose and the Wolf's heads. The Iron Throne named Tommen king, with Tywin as hand once more. Unbroken, unbowed, and more dangerous than before. Frey treachery thickened as Walder accepted Lannister gold. Ships from the Shield Islands reported that Euron Greyjoy had set sail west with monstrous ambitions, while Balon reaved the stony shore unchecked. One evening, as ravens croaked atop Harrenhal's broken towers, Robb stood with Margaery over maps traced like spiderweb cracks. Too many fronts, he said. We cannot shield the north, defend the riverlands, and press south while Ironborn gut our coast. Then split the realm, she suggested slowly. Crown Sansa Princess of Winterfell. Send her home guarded by Manderly ships. Keep your war here, where wheat can feed it and roses can shade it till victory blooms. Robb's breath faltered. To send my sister into a siege. She will not be besieged. The people of the north will rise around her. Your bannermen will defend their trueborn lady even unto stone and ice. And you, she touched his chest. You will ride where the war is hottest without fear for hearth behind you. He closed his eyes. Saw Winterfell's burned bones, Bran and Rickon presumed dead, Jon lost to black cloaks. Could Sansa, gentle yet steely, hold that ancient keep? He tasted decision like blood. We will send her, he said, but we must secure the twins. No Stark host will cross again unless Fry wagons roll beneath wolf banners. Margaery's smile held no warmth. We have roses that can grow through stone. Perhaps one must root in the crossing. Letters flew. Edmure Tully would wed Rosalind Fry at the twins, sealing an accord, while the queen herself proposed to grace the marriage with her presence, bearing a chest of reach gold and a cask of arbor wine as apology for prior slights. Walder Fry, eyes glittering, agreed, inviting king and queen both. Catelyn Stark felt unease coil in her gut. She had walked halls where Fry man, heirs masked venom. She urged caution, yet Robb trusted the rose's thorns to keep vipers at bay. The night before they rode, Grey Wind refused to enter the twins' causeway. He prowled outside, hackles sharp. Bolton arrived late, escorted by men unfamiliar to Stark guards, their flayed man sigils hastily stitched. Margaery noted one man's boots still wet with river mud despite weeks of dry roads. Boots that reeked faintly of blood. When she mentioned it to Robb, he frowned but said Fry feasts often drew far travelers. Inside the cavernous hall, torches smoked. Music clashed discordant under rafters strung with banners. Margaery's gown of winter rose silk shimmered, Tyrell petals drooping like tears. Rosalind Fry wept through her marriage vows, Edmure's anxious mirth echoing. Cupbearers refilled wine until laughter muddied. Walder Fry, ancient and watchful, toasted union after union. When at last he proposed a bedding, the hall erupted. Robb rose, half drunk, to claim his own bride for dance. Margaery's fingers trembled lightly in his, eyes scanning shadows where flutes squealed off-key. She saw Lord Roose slip from the dais, cloak whispering. Outside, thunder cracked though skies were clear. Grey Wind howled. The first crossbow bolt took Daisy Mormont through the throat. Catelyn's scream splintered music. Fry men drew blades. Stark men reached for hilts they were forced to surrender at door. Robb spun toward Margaery. Another bolt clipped his pauldron. The queen reached for him, but a Fry seized her hair. In the chaos, Ser Loras, disguised among Tyrell footmen, hurled himself forward, sword flashing. Blood sprayed arbor wine across rushes. Bolton emerged like a pale wraith, Dreadfort men hacking. Robb's voice rose, "Protect the queen," but the din swallowed it. He drove a long sword through a Frey's chest, felt another blade bite his thigh. Catelyn wrested a dagger, pressed it to Lord Walder's weasel throat. Yet Fry grandsons closed in dozens. Margaery broke free when Brienne crashed into her captor, shield splintering nose. She stumbled, skirts torn, found Robb staggering by toppled benches. Their eyes met, love, terror, fury. He pushed her toward Brienne. "Go," he rasped. "No," she answered. An arrow pierced Robb's side. She caught him as he buckled. Around them the twins roared with slaughter. Bolton advanced, red candlelight flickering on the flayed man of his breastplate. "This is for the north," he proclaimed, and drove a dirk into Robb's heart. Margaery screamed, the sound raw as birth. Robb's blue eyes widened, then stilled. Blood soaked her hands, hot as summer. Brienne's blade met Bolton's, sparks showering, but Fry bolts riddled Brienne's arms. She fell shielding queen and corpse alike. Catelyn, seeing her son die, dragged her dagger across the throat of Walder's wife before steel answered her grief. Silence followed. Only the flutter of petals torn from Margaery's bodice as she knelt over Robb's body. Rose silk blooming crimson. Walder Frey surveyed the ruin. "Take the queen," he ordered. "Send her to the capital. Cersei will know what to do with a thorny rose." Bolton wiped his dagger. "Winter is done," he murmured. Yet outside, beyond the banners of treachery, gray wind's howls shivered through the night, and in those notes was a promise the North indeed remembered and forgets nothing. Margaery Tyrell Stark awoke in a black cell beneath Casterly Rock weeks later, wrists chained in gold too thin to break yet too heavy to lift. The lion's den reeked of seawater and rot. She cradled memories of Robb's final breath like embers. Cersei came once to gloat. Olenna's fate remained rumor. The Reach trembled under Lannister suspicion. But deep within the queen who had re-rooted summer in winter soil, a seed of vengeance sprouted. Chains could bind flesh, not will. A rose's thorns grew sharper in shadow. And somewhere north of shattered sigils, Sansa Stark raised the direwolf banner above Winterfell, armies gathering like storm clouds trimmed in green. The game was not over. It had only shed another skin. Margaery closed her eyes, and in darkness she saw Robb standing amidst snows that melted into roses. His voice whispered, "Remember." She would. For 5 hours, for 5 years, for however long it took, the rose would bleed the lion, and winter would come again. Cold dawn seeped through the barred slit of rock that served as Margaery's only window, tinting the seawater spray with a gray too pale to be called color. She sat cross-legged on a pallet of woven rushes, wrists still circled by the thin gold manacles that had cut crescents into her skin. The bruises along her arms were fading to dusky green. The memory of Robb's final heartbeat would never fade at all. She breathed in, slow, steady, as the septas of Highgarden had taught her during childhood storms. Seawind in, grief out. Salt in, fury out. Each exhale faintly warmed the chain links, and for the first time since the twins she considered that warmth a weapon. Somewhere above, lions roared, distant cages rattling as Casterly Rock's menagerie of heraldic beasts woke to morning feeding. The guards who changed her chamber pot in shifts of 7 never spoke, but she had learned their gait, their cadence, their fear. Once a day a jailer brought thick oat bread flavored with apple. Once every 3 days Grand Maester Pycelle shuffled in, stooped under scrolls of parchment, pretending concern for her health while searching her eyes for surrender. She gave him none. Instead she asked for ink and vellum. "To copy my prayers," she explained. Old men steeped in dust seldom refused piety. The ink, when it came, she hid beneath a loose flagstone. The vellum she hoarded for words more potent than prayer. By the 3rd week she had smuggled a quill, fashioned from bone splinter trimmed by a stone edge until it held an edge of its own. Only the gallnut ink remained visible under her cot, disguised as a half-spent candle stub. Night after night she wrote, codes sewn into psalms, syllables counted so each 3rd word formed a hidden sentence. "The rose will thorn." Another sheet, "Gray wind's howl rides north." She folded the pages into tiny darts, sealed them with flour paste scraped from crusts, and waited. Day 23. A rat crawled beneath the door, tail twitching. Margaery scattered crumbs and murmured lessons learned from Hightower scribes. Rats could be trained when grain was reward. Soon the creature greeted her thrice daily, black eyes bright with trust. She tied a thread of her own hair around its middle, affixing the first missive. On the next guard change she coaxed it through the bars. The corridor beyond smelled of mold and torch grease. Whether the rat returned, she cared not. Freedom was a network of small chances. She had planted the first root. Hundreds of leagues away, Winterfell's repaired battlements bristled with new timber palisades and banners stitched hastily from every scrap of cloth Sansa Stark could seize. The dire wolf of House Stark stood central, black thread forming a howling maw. To either side a rose in green silk, none so fine as Reach seamstresses once made, but bold enough for a message. Stark and Tyrell remained bound in blood. She wore no crown, only a fur-lined cloak clasped with a brooch shaped like her dire wolf lady. fashioned by Micken's apprentice from melted silver spoons. But men called her queen in the north all the same. Ser Dantos had delivered her from King's Landing into Maidenpool. From there, Lord Davos smuggled her through White Harbor, and Ser Wyman Manderly sent ships disguised as whaling carracks to ferry her upriver past Deepwood Motte. The Ironborn raids had left that coast ragged, but a Stark's return drew small folk like sparks to tinder. Fisherfolk arrived with smoked cod. Crannogmen drifted on reed boats offering tarred shields. Every mile of her passage, Greywater whispers told of Walder Frey's treachery and Bolton's betrayal. The North remembered indeed. In Winterfell's cleared Great Hall, Sansa met with Galbart Glover, Lady Meage Mormont, arm in sling yet eyes burning, Lord Wyman's son Wyllis, freed by barter from Fry Hands, and Howland Reed, risen from the swamps after half a lifetime unseen. They knelt, swore swords and secrets. Sansa, voice trembling but unbroken, named Lady Lyanna Mormont steward of the Bare Isles until her mother's arm healed, entrusted Barbary Dustin with rebuilding Moat Caelin's ruins to bar Ironborn passage, dispatched Glover's nephew to rally Flint's finger. No raven flew without her seal. No hearth fire burned, but it warmed loyalty. On the 5th night of her reign, a lone direwolf howl drifted down from the wolfswood. No beast living, but a hunter's horn carved to mimic a wolf's cry. Reed identified the signal. Crannock scouts had sighted Bolton men marching under dusky moons. 10 leagues east, he whispered. 200, no more. Foraging. Sansa exhaled. Proof Roose Bolton dares cross my soil. She told Maester Luwin retrained apprentices to ink parchment. To Lady Olenna Tyrell, Queen Dowager of Highgarden. Bolton moves on Winterfell. The dire wolf and the rose yet flourish. Your granddaughter breathes or bleeds at Casterly Rock. Aid us, and the North shall feed your sons through 10 winters. Glover balked at promising grain they scarcely possessed. Sansa met his eyes. Better to die owing bread than live full at a traitor's table. The hall fell silent, and in that hush the child once cowed by Cersei Lannister vanished, replaced by a woman forged sharper than any sword song. Atop Dragonstone's volcanic cliffs, Stannis Baratheon glowered over Blackwater smoke still staining the southern horizon. His siege had failed when Tywin returned with Fry and houses sworn anew, yet wildfire marred Lannister prestige, and rumors of Margaery's capture slithered like eels through allied camps. Davos Seaworth knelt before his king. The realm fractures, your grace. Tyrells spurn Lannisters. Freys butcher wolves. Ironborn prey on the weak. A single spark may set the lion's fur aflame. Stannis tapped knuckles on a war table littered with carved seashells marking fleets. I am that spark, yet every ember demands fuel. My ships rot. My men hunger. Davos dared to speak of alliances. The North rallies behind Lady Sansa. The Reach looks to Lady Olenna. If you grant safe harbor to one, the other may bend for mutual cause. The king's jaw clenched. I will not barter justice. Melisandre stepped from shadow, red gown whispering. Your justice lies in the flames, sire. I have seen a rose wreathed in ice burst aflame at a wolf's feet, and from its petals a sword of dawn rose shining blue. She gestured to the table's northern reaches. Aid the young queen of winter and the captive rose will become your flame-bearer. Together they will unseat the great other who sits the iron throne. Stannis' eyes flicked to Davos. You would sail to White Harbor? I would sail to any harbor to see the realm made whole. Davos bowed. If the wolf and the rose join the stag, the lion must yield. Thus the first black-hulled ships of Stannis Baratheon set course up the narrow sea. Lanterns dimmed to foxfire glimmer, carrying 10,000 men hardened by siege and tempered by loss. The wind bore them north beneath constellations unblinking. Deep within the riverlands, Harrenhal smoldered anew. Abandoned after the Red Wedding rout, its monstrous towers hosted crows feasting on corpses left for carrion. Yet one tower's highest chamber glowed with candlefire. Lady Olenna Tyrell's traveling secretary had returned, guided by whispers and coin, to search the ruin for Tyrell wounded lost in the chaos. Among broken beams they found Ser Loras Tyrell, feverish yet alive, armor half melted to skin. Maester Lomaise, sworn to Horn Hill, tended his burns with honey and moldy bread poultices until he could stand. When word reached Highgarden that the Night of Flowers had survived, Lady Olenna's resolve hardened like late frost. She summoned bannermen, recited every slight the Lannisters had inflicted. Renly murdered, Margaery imprisoned, grain seized by Cersei's levies, Tyrell emissaries flayed at Dreadfort. Highgarden's roses would unfurl steel edges. She ordered Randyll Tarly to gather 50,000 and march north to crush Bolton and Fry both, while Garland the Gallant sailed upriver with barges full of wheat for Winterfell. The Reach-born smiths began forging new coins stamped with twin sigils. Roaring direwolf entwined with flowering rose. An unspoken claim that Iron Throne taxes no longer mattered south of the Mander. In bright sunlit courtyards, children plucked petals chanting, "A wolf loves me. A wolf loves me not." What reaches children spreads swiftly to maids, to farmers, to knights. Roose Bolton's camp at Barrowton swelled with uneasy hosts. Fry levies grumbling over meager rations, Dustin's ruing lost sons, Karstark turncloaks nursing brandy guilt. Bolton studied them like meat on hooks. Night after night banners vanished. Men deserting toward Winterfell's promise of northern honor. He countered with fear. Flayed corpses nailed to ash trees along deserter roads, tongues severed from those who dared speak Stark's name. Yet whispers grew, unstoppable as rot. A rat carried a parchment scrap into a Fry cookpot. Tiny curled letters, "The rose will thorn." The cooks laughed at riddles. Hours later 3 of them were found garrote, pink sigils carved into their cheeks. Some suspected Mance Raiders' free folk infiltration, others claimed Crannog trickery, but Bolton saw a deeper game. Tyrell sabotage weaving North's memory to reach his gold. He dispatched 70 silence men to intercept the rumored wheat barges on the White Knife and capture any Tyrell captain alive. "Flay them in sight of the river," he ordered Ramsay by Raven. "Let the leeches learn salt and blood." Ramsay replied in crimson wax, "Send me better sport. These flowers will too quickly." At the wall, Jon Snow, now Lord Commander, read reports by torchlight. "Robb is dead," Sam whispered, voice thin. The parchment bore Clydes's shaky sigil, rumor carried from Eastwatch traders. Jon closed his eyes. Brother, friend, king. And Margaery, the queen, they said lion claws held her. Snow lashed whitened windows, buttressing cold grief. Yet news of Sansa's uprising sparked a heat he barely dared nurse. The Night's Watch must remain neutral, but a brother's heart bleeds black and wolf alike. Jon penned a letter to Her Grace Sansa Stark, Winterfell, offering what aid stealth and ravens might gift. Another to Stannis on the march, begging for reinforcements before wildling deserters under Tormund Giantsbane could slip back south. Every force in the realm seemed to gather at the Wall of Secrets, waiting for some hammer blow none yet named. No hammer struck louder than Balon Greyjoy's death, plunged from a rope bridge by wind none witnessed. Euron crows, I returned from sunset seas to claim the Seastone chair, promising dragons tamed and Lannister plunder. His first act, dispatching Victarion with a fleet of great ships to lay siege to Lannisport while the Lion's armies warred elsewhere. As sailors rioted in King's Landing for bread, gold cloaks deserted posts to guard their own purses, and rumors of an iron-born tide lapped at the docks. Cersei slapped pyromancers when their wildfire stock proved half-spent. She summoned Qyburn's black cells for solutions that smelled of blood and worse. But even Cersei could not silence the streets forever. One dawn a song rang through Flea Bottom. Rose in chains, wolf in snow, lion's debt the realm will know. Within a day some 100 beggars repeated the tune. By dusk they hung flayed lion dolls from wagon wheels. The gold cloaks arrested dozens. Yet each prisoner sang the same verse until jails echoed like choir pits. Cersei raged at her council, spittle bright on wine-slick lips. Each arrest bred 2 more singers. Fury is a wheel whose spokes extend far beyond control. At sea below Casterly Rock, a fishing skiff drifted near the rocky promontory. Within crouched a hooded graybeard calling himself Old Jaily. He spread nets by day, but by night he rode to hidden coves where guards seldom patrolled. On the 29th night of Margaery's confinement, Jaily stowed nets unchanged and hoisted a lantern thrice, Long, short, long. High on the cliffs, a single tower window responded with 2 faint flashes. Margaery had splintered her bedpost, used fibers from the rush mat to braid rope just long enough to loop over the barred opening. The lantern flashes told her the skiff waited. She dislocated her thumb to wriggle free of the manacles, binding lacerated wrists in torn shift. She squeezed through bars no grown woman should slip. Sworn septas once mocked her for being willowy. Now that will saved her. She did not drop. She climbed. Ivy ribbons clung to stone, watered by spring torrents. Hand over bleeding hand she descended, moonlight glazing the sea below like spilled milk. Halfway down, a sentry's torch bobbed across parapets. Margaery flattened herself, breaths measured as in childhood storms. The sentry paused, piss arcing off the edge. She counted 8 heartbeats before he moved on. Waves thudded. When she reached a rock niche she smelled tar and old fish. Jaeli, no old man at all but Garland Tyrell in dyed beard, reached up, clasping her with scarred knight's hands. They slid into the skiff, silent as drifting seed. 2 oarmasters rowed them past surf. Under deck waited a false cask containing Loras, still weak but determined. Garland lifted the cask lid. "Sister," Margaery stroked his fevered brow and whispered, "The Thorns remember." The skiff met a larger galley beyond shoals, sails stripped, hull painted in pitch to cloak any sigils. By dawn they were seabound, course set north, word traveling ahead by Raven to Winterfell. The Rose is free. Roose Bolton's war council learned of the escape a week later. The news struck like arrow to gut. Bolton's mouth twitched, eyes like morning frost. Fry captains argued over blame until he silenced them with a knife through a goblet, wine and glass spraying steak platters. "We must take Winterfell now," he hissed, "before Tyrell grain and Baratheon iron clamp its walls." He assembled 12,000 from Barrowton, Rills, and Traitor Karstarks, marched west to evade Reed's swamps, then turned north along the shivering forest. Scouts reported Manderley carts hauling lumber to rebuild Moat Cailin. Those carts vanished in dawn mists, drivers stripped and crucified as warning. Yet every village they passed had been emptied, children spirited away by Crannogman paths beyond their map. Bolton did not slow, winter's edge threatened, and his son Ramsay prowled the vanguard eager to bleed. 3 days' ride from Winterfell, snow began. Fat flakes that muffled hoofbeats. Fires burned ahead on the King's Road. Bolton ordered halt. Through swirling white emerged a column of heavy foot in plate painted midnight blue. Stannis Baratheon's vanguard, standard of the fiery heart overshadowed Stag. Behind them, tall ridges bristled with Northmen archers wearing wolf brooches hammered from pewter. The snow itself seemed to bristle with spears as clansmen of the Mountain of the Moon crept into flanks. Bolton found himself funneled into a narrow vale known locally as Harp's Hollow. Lord Tarly's voice thundered from the ridge opposite. "North remembers, Reach avenges. Yield now and suffer mercy." Roose raised helm visor, calm. "Mercy is for the weak." He signaled Ramsay. Horns blared. Fry crossbow screams answered. But snow-concealed trenches dug by Reed's Crannogmen, lined with stakes. Bolton's first charge split, horses shrieking. Flaming arrow. WS rained, igniting pitch-doused pines stacked in hidden berms. Boltons found themselves in canyon of fire and ice. Ramsay tried to circle left. Mountain clans crashed from drifts shouting, "For the Maid of Mercy."
Brands exes met vleetmen.
On the right, Manderley knights emerging from behind sled-mounted shields sang "The North, the North." Their war sleds, pushed by draft elk, smashed Bolton footmen like 10-foot rams. Roose's banner wavered. He pushed forward himself, twin daggers gleaming. Storm's End men under Ser Richard Horp intercepted, one blade seizing Bolton's wrist. A Karstark deserter lunged, but arrows felled him. Chaos spooled red ribbons across white ground. At Vale's center Stannis himself advanced, Lightbringer drawn, though some said the blade glowed not at all. Bolton met him steel to steel. Stannis Jared blade free, pivoted. Bolton slashed, nicking arm. Snow hissed on hot blood. They circled. Over ridge, Tarly's horn sounded. Tyrell reserve heavy cavalry thundered downhill, lances lowered. Ramsay, seeing flank lost, spurred to rescue. But Blackfish Tully, freed from fry cells by Reed allies, loosed a flight of arrows that downed Ramsay's horse. Ramsay tumbled, dog helm cracking. He rose spitting, only to meet Brienne of Tartha's two-handed greatsword. Steel met flayed flesh. His scream choked in wind. Bolton gauged field, every banner save his burned or fallen. He disengaged. Retreat cut off by pike. Stannis stepped forward. In the name of the one true king, I sentence you. Bolton hurled a dagger. Stannis deflected. Yet the distraction enough for Bolton to dash to a downed Fry horse and mount bareback, galloping through smoldering haze. Mountain clans gave chase, but terrain hindered. By dusk the vale belonged to wolves and roses. Fires warmed wounded. Snow drank blood. Sansa rode onto field in furs white as heart, Greywind's last littermate, born of captured she-wolf, loping beside. She knelt by Brienne, who cleaned sword near Ramsay's corpse. The Maid Knight offered the blade's hilt. For King Robb, Sansa touched steel. For Queen Margaery, she replied. Horns answered, Tyrell and Stark entwined. Stannis surveyed, stern. War council convened under shield tents. Sansa, Margaery newly arrived under Garland's guard, Tarly, the Blackfish, Brienne, Tormund Giantsbane, whose wildling Stannis had pardoned for service. 10 candles burned to dawn while they plotted. Objective: seize the twins, sever Fry supply, march south to crush Lannister power now beset by Ironborn. Crown? A question left unsaid. Stannis eyed the sisters-in-law, Wolf and Rose, thinking of prophesy. Lightbringer still dull. Cersei felt the realm slipping beneath her like sand. Pycelle dead, found poisoned. Qyburn named Grand Maester by sheer terror. Tommen feverish. She sent ravens to Dorne begging alliance. Oberyn's widow replied with a box of scorpions. She dreamt of sept bells tolling as wildfire bloomed. Each morning she woke tasting smoke. Then came a parchment, seal unknown, woven of wolf and rose. Surrender Casterly Rock and the captive queen. Spare your son. Beneath, Sansa Stark's sharp script and Margaery Tyrell's graceful flourish entwined. Cersei shredded the letter before Jaime could read. She summoned her last reserves, 30,000 drawn from southern marches, and ordered Qyburn to ready dragonfire catapults atop the city walls. Let them come, she snarled. I will crown King's Landing with their ashes. Yet every gate saw deserters. Every garrison starved. When Euron's ships blockaded Blackwater, Lion Gold could not buy bread. Flea Bottom rose in riot chanting the Rosewolf song. Gold cloaks, bribed by Tyrell coins smuggled by onion boats, opened 3 gates to the rebel host. The march south was relentless. At the Twins, Fry archers found themselves starved out when Tyrell siege engines launched barrels of rot milk laced with choking spores. Surrender came within 9 days. Walder Fry, 77 sons trembling behind him, knelt before Sansa Stark and offered hostages. She accepted none, only demanded opening coffers to feed war orphans and ordered every corpse from the Red Wedding interred in stone crypts. Names etched in old tongue so the North would never forget. Walder wept rage. She turned away. Bolton fled east toward Stony Shore but was captured by wildling scouts, dragged before Stannis. The king in the narrow sea condemned him to burn with leal men, yet Melisandre whispered this blood alone might wake Lightbringer. At dusk Bolton screamed upon a pyre, yet the sword did not blaze brighter. Some said Roose died smiling. The allied hosts Stark, Tyrell, Baratheon, Riverlords, Northern Mountain clans, Reach Spears, and tattered Rainbow Guard pushed to Harrenhal to regroup. Robb's bones, recovered secretly by Outrider, lay wrapped in direwolf cloak upon an oaken bier at Hall's heart. Sansa, Margaery, and Bran, brought south by Reed after awakening powers of Green Seer, stood vigil. Bran's white eyes rolled as ravens converged on shattered rafters. He spoke in echo. The weirwood roots drink deep, but the dragon stirs in stone. Within days, word. Daenerys Targaryen had sailed for Westeros with 3 grown dragons and an army of freedmen. The game's board spun anew. Sansa met Margaery at dawn on God's eyes misted shore. They walked barefoot, water lapping, secrets shared in hush. If dragons come, Sansa wondered, will we fight or bend? Robb believed in freedom of the North, Margaery answered. I believe in lands where children do not starve for crowns. If dragonfire burns such hunger away, perhaps bending is merely planting seeds for different blooms. They clasped hands. Behind them dawn painted clouds rose red. In rising mist they saw perhaps not the end but the garden yet to tend, where dire wolves might run through summer fields beneath dragon wings, and roses could grow wild through broken stone. Time would decide as ever, but for that moment, Wolf and Rose watched a world cradle new light over dark water, and neither bowed. Midsummer heat pressed over the riverlands like a wet shroud, and though Harrenhal's cursed stones drank sunlight without thawing their ancient chill, even the labyrinthine keeps sweated in the hush before marching orders. Margaery walked the rampart's ragged edge at dusk, skirts whispering along fractured merlins. Below, the allied host sprawled across reedy fields. Stark tents dyed wolf's blood red by sunset, Tyrell pavilions green as summer orchards, Baratheon black and gold stakes hammered into ground that still stank of Caligula fire. Battle banners drooped in windless air. Yet for all the hush, she felt motion everywhere. Smiths banging out horseshoes, scouts trading breathless reports, maesters measuring barley for ration, Davos's smear of onion-scent sweat counseling with Northman Jarls by torchlight. She paused beside Ser Loras, leaning on a crutch. His newly grafted skin glowed raw but healing. He traced the valley with one mailed finger. Tomorrow they announce the plan, he whispered. Stannis wants the city ringed and starved. Tarly argues for a hammer blow to break Cersei before dragons tip scales unknown. Sansa speaks little, but she listens to every ticking leaf. Margaery watched campfires sprout as dusk thickened. Sansa listens like winter soil, she murmured. So every seed of counsel grows in silence. She will choose the moment harvests ripen, not a heartbeat sooner. And you? Loras asked. What harvest do you wish? She pictured chains clinking in Casterly rock guts. The rasp of her own breath counted against darkness. I want Tommen safe, she said finally. And Cersei's reign ended so thoroughly that never again will children grow with lion fear thrumming in their veins. Beyond that, she trailed off, noticing Bran Stark on the far parapet, pale hair limned silver by rising moon. Ravens wheeled above his head, crying like broken violins. Bran's eyes filmed over with sightless white. 1,000 wings beat inside that gaze. He rarely spoke first, but tonight he turned toward her. Every river runs to a mouth, he said softly. We stand at the mouth now. If we dam its flow, it floods behind us. If we let it run free, it may wash us into the sea. Margaery shivered despite heat. And what of dragons? She asked. The sky finds its own rivers. Bran's voice resonated with something older than castles. When fire rains, stone may stand or melt. With that, he rotated his weirwood-carved chair and rolled away, propelled by Mira Reed's steady push. Ravens followed in vortex. Loras exhaled. 7 save us from prophets. Better swords and shields than riddles. Margaery smoothed her hands across the stone's scorched flank. Prophets see paths, swords walk them. Both are needed. Below, horns braid the summons to council. She turned for stair, gate certain. Nights of plotting, of silent rage tempered to purpose. Now they would weigh blood against time. The war pavilion of council was a massive canvas labyrinth, each lord's quarter sectioned by curtained walls to foul eavesdroppers. Yet at its core Stannis had erected a round table from ship ribs. No one sat higher than another. When Margaery entered, torches guttered as if bowing. Sansa stood opposite, hair braided with dire wolf claws polished white. She nodded. Garland Tyrell already conferred with Tarly. The Blackfish fingered a reed ink map. Brienne leaned silent sentinel. Davos hovered near Stannis, who stared at carved figures spaced around table rim. Lions, stags, wolves, roses, krakens, suns, and rising dragons newly added from beach scouting. Late, Stannis noted without ire. Deliberate, Margaery answered. Sliding into space between Sansa and Davos, they began. Edric Storm, brought by sea, unrolled intelligence. King's Landing's food stores dwindled to 3 weeks. Euron's blockade choked imports. Lannister reserves locked in Casterly Rock out of reach. Yet wildfire caches remained below the Red Keep. Catapults had been retrofitted with pyromancer grapples. Tarly spoke of ground assault from Mudgate shielded by towers of wet rawhide. Tyrell sappers undermining inner walls. The Blackfish lobbied for infiltration via river sewers, citing memories of Robert's rebellion. Sir Richard Horpe suggested multi-pronged feints to draw gold cloaks to one side before the main breach. Stannis listened, then rapped knuckles. If dragons burn walls first, none of this matters. We need parley with Daenerys Targaryen. Davos. Her fleet anchors at Duskendale, said the smuggler. Reports say she'll ride for King's Landing within fortnight, slower than dragons. Those circle overhead each night like stars on fire. She courts alliances inside city. Freed slaves, sparrows, common folk. She claims the throne by right. Tension thickened. Sansa's lips pressed thin. Margaery caught her eye. Alliance or confrontation, they must decide before Dragonfire forced hand. Send envoys, Sansa said, voice low but carrying. Proclaim our aim. Justice for Crown's victims. No thirst for southern slavery. Offer grain, loyalty, and seats upon a council that governs realm's wounds. If she seeks sole rule, we may yet bend, so long as North's freedom is honored. Stannis snorted. Bend? I have bent to no claimant. By law Bran's entrance cut him off. The boy rolled to table edge, ravens settling along beams overhead. Laws shift like paths in snow, Bran murmured. The Dragon Queen brings a storm none alive recall. To face it divided is to drown. And there are shadows deeper than Cersei Lannister. He placed a carved figure, a humanoid of ice-blue wood, eyes faceted obsidian. Few recognized the others of legend. Those that did exchanged grim stares. North of the wall, Bran whispered. They stir again. The wall cracks by slow degrees. I have seen it. Stannis's jaw clenched. He believed in cold dread. Tarly shuffled. Davos crossed himself. So we choose, Bran finished. Fight over cinders of one throne, or forge many thrones against night beyond reckoning. Silence. It was Margaery who broke it. We choose life, she said. But life demands sacrifice. We will treat with Daenerys. We will offer our banners if she spares Tommen and ends Cersei's tyranny. If she refuses and seeks only fire, we save the people ourselves. She looked to Sansa, then Stannis. The wolf and the rose stand together. Will the stag? Stannis's eyes burned, but Melisandre's red shadow flickered near entrance and nodded unseen. The stag will stand, Stannis said, so long as light remains in dawn. Thus envoys were chosen. Davos for Smuggler's Trust, Missandei of Noth, already within Daenerys' retinue, sought to meet them. Brienne to bear oaths unsullied. Tyrion Lannister, newly escaped Pentos, surrendered himself to Margaery's custody and begged Chance to broker. They would sail at first tide. That tide broke red over Duskendale when the dragons descended. Regal led, wings emerald transparent in dawn. Viserion gold, Drogon black lava vast. Their landing rocked wharf planks, sending gulls screaming. Dothraki screamers ringed the pier, and unsullied shields parted for their queen. Silver hair pinned with dragonbone, eyes outshining surf. Davos and Brienne approached beneath white truce banner. Tyrion, cloaked in hood to hide recognizable features, hung back. Yet the Dragon Queen's gaze pierced cloth. Lord Tyrion, she greeted, voice calm but cool. You bear many debts. I seek to pay them, he answered. Negotiations unfolded in the old Dun Fort Hall stripped of House Ricker tapestries. Daenerys at high seat carved from cedar, Davos opposite flanked by Brienne and Tyrion. Missandei interpreted silence between them, though both spoke the common tongue. Davos presented parchment, Joint treaty drafted overnight. It named Daenerys Queen of the Undulls, Rhoynar First Men, Sansa Stark as Princess of Winter, Margaery Tyrell Stark as Lady Protector of the Crownlands until Tommen's majority, Stannis as Lord of Storm's End and Hand of the King, and a Great Council each decade to review laws. Slavery to be abolished realm-wide. Night's Watch reinforced by royal levy. In exchange, Daenerys would spare Tommen, turn Cersei over for judgment, and pledge dragons north when others marched. Daenerys listened. Cersei murdered my father. Some might call that justice now come full circle. Should I deny her a queen's trial? Davos inclined his head. Justice weighs heavier than revenge, your grace. Tyrion added softly, and mercy rules longer than fear. She studied them. A convenient counsel from those who once served my family's usurpers. Davos accepted the rebuke. True, yet wildfire still scars the city. We seek not to unseat you, but to spare innocence. Daenerys fingered the dragon pendant at her throat. Here, in Foreign Hall, she was queen in exile no longer. She could ride Drogon over the city tomorrow and claim throne by fire. But the eyes of Notha's gentle translator, of bearded smuggler who risked life for a son, of broken knight in blue armor, they whispered that burning would leave nothing to rule. Finally she rose. If your alliance stands true, I will spare the boy. But Cersei must answer before realm. I will sit as judge. You may sit as witnesses. And the Great Council must include voices of freedmen and small folk. No more closed circles of old blood sealing fates. Davos bowed. We will sign that clause. Daenerys extended her hand. Brienne removed gauntlet and clasped it. Cold steel meeting warm skin. A pledge sealed in living flesh. King's Landing endured siege without siege engines. Dragons shadowed the sky daily, landing on Old September of Baelor's scorched steppes. Each time citizens flocked to their shape, hailing new majesty. Gold cloaks, starved of pay, deserted to markets where Tyrell grain fed lines of hungry children. Lannister banners faded under sun until they matched soot at their edges. Cersei withdrew to the Red Keep, door iron shut. Qyburn's creatures patrolled corridors. Silent giant in white cloak, black eyes, rotting face. She nursed Tommen, promised him games and kittens, but his small frame withered under terror. She dreamt wildfire seas boiling underfloor. In waking, she felt tremors as dragons roared outside. Candle stubs melted to lumps. Maps of Westeros curled at edges like burning parchment. Her maids fled. She drank arbor red by gallon, lips stained purple. When Euron's blockade collapsed, drowned by gray plague sweeping Victarion's fleet, Daenerys's navy sailed river unopposed. At dawn, horns blasted. Gates parted not to rams but to unsullied ranks in silent file, spears upright. City bells told of surrender. No wildfire ignited. Pyromancers found their stores destroyed overnight, candles left in puddles of unknown black fluid. Rumor said Tyrion bribed them with promise of place in new order. Others swore shadow of man made of ice roamed catacombs and froze fuse ropes to brittle dust. Daenerys rode Drogon above Mud Gate. Sansa and Margaery rode below on white destriers, banners of wolf and rose streaming. Citizens fell to knees as cavalcade wound palace way. Above, crows circled spires. In throne room, Cersei awaited. The Iron Throne glimmered blue-white. Qyburn's creature, Ser Robert Strong, blocked steps. Tommen clung to mother's dress. Cersei wore black mourning gown, crown loose on tousled hair. She laughed when dragons breached roof opening, smoke swirling. Come to finish your father's work, Targaryen bitch? She spat. Daenerys dismounted. Flame-black scales shimmered behind her as Drogon perched on arch unsullied spread in semicircle. Brienne and Loras flanked Sansa and Margaery. Stannis entered last, sword unsheathed. I come to end blood, Daenerys said, voice echoing in vast hall. Lay down crown. Cersei drew a dagger to Tommen's throat. Another step and last heir of Baratheon dies. Tommen whimpered, eyes wide. Margaery stepped forward, arms raised. Tommen, sweetling, do you trust me? Tommen nodded though blade grazed skin. Cersei tightened hold. Margaery spoke softly, each word shaping air. Remember the arbor swings, the gardens, the songs we shared. Remember the kitten Sare Pounce. Close your eyes and think of lemon cakes. Trust that the world beyond this moment loves you. Tommen squeezed eyes shut. In blink of tension, Sandor Clegane, the Hound, strode from shadow. He had slipped side gates with Tyrion's plan, fed by coin and grudges. His burned face twisted. He swung greatsword down upon Ser Robert Strong. Steel met reanimated flesh. Sparks flew. Creature staggered but did not fall. Simultaneously, Brienne launched across floor, blade blue with Valyrian steel Oathkeeper. She sliced dagger from Cersei's hand, nicking Queen's wrist. Tommen stumbled into Margaery's arms. Margaery whisked him behind unsullied shields. Strong roared, sound like grinding tombstone, and backhanded Hound across floor. Qyburn shrieked spells. Drogon answered with shrill hiss, flame-licking stones just shy of melting. Strong raised sword again. Brienne parried, knees buckling. Loras limped into fray, lance stub now staff, striking underside of helmet where neck seemed parted. Nothing. Tyrion shouted from dais. Remove the helm! Hound roused, seized spear half fallen. Stannis hurled dagger. Brienne hooked visor lip with Oathkeeper and wrenched. Helmet tore free, revealing gray, half-rotten visage of Ser Gregor Clegane, eyes milk film. Sandor froze, brother reborn to horror. Gregor swung. Hound ducked. Blade clove air with corpse stench. Hound drove spear through open throat, pinning Revenant to throne base.
Valyrian stil met necrotic bonen. Silent shudder.
Gregor's corpse sagged, black ichor oozing. Cersei screamed, charged. At Margaery with claw hands. Sansa blocked her path. Years of silent lessons moved in her limbs. She sidestepped, gripped Cersei's wrist, turned momentum. Cersei stumbled, crown tumbling. Sansa caught it midair. No more children will die for this metal, she said, voice calm. She placed crown on marble floor. Unsullied seized Cersei. Daenerys met her gaze. You will stand trial before Council of Realm. Cersei spat blood. You're all traitors. The lion roars everlasting. The lion can rest, Margaery whispered, pulling Tommen to her cloak. The boy sobbed against her shoulder, tiny fists clutching rose silk. Great Council convened 5 days later in Dragon Pit under torn sky. Lords arrived from across kingdoms. Commoners chosen by lot-filled stone tiers. Daenerys sat central, Drogon lurking along broken dome boundary, eyes ember. Sansa wore white direwolf cloak. Stannis bore stag circlet. Margaery seated near Tommen, who clutched carved wooden lion gifted by Davos. Accusations presented. Qyburn testified, mouth trembling. Wildfire logs, secret debts, famine. Cersei defended with scorn. When asked about September explosion that killed thousands, she smiled. The crowd's roar matched dragon cry. Sentence debated 3 nights. In final vote, death decreed. Yet method contested. Dragonfire, beheading, life in silent monastery. Daenerys offered compromise. Cersei to be exiled to silent Isle of Noth, vow of peace, watched by unsullied order. Some booed, but Sansa supported. Mercy breaks chains of vengeance, she said. Margaery nodded. Let her live to witness realms she could not imagine. Vote carried. Cersei removed under heavy guard. Tommen remained in Margaery's ward, to study under maesters until of age to choose path. Council turned to throne. Stannis pressed claim. North Lords championed Sansa. Reachmen championed Margaery. Dornish envoys argued for Republic. Chaos simmered. Then Bran wheeled forward. Ravens perched on rims. The world has changed, he murmured, voice like rustling leaves. We hold in our hands the memory of all who bled. A throne of swords turns all men to cut themselves. Let thrones be many, councils many. Let realms choose their stewards. Murmurs. I will not wear a crown, Daenerys declared. Not while ice demons gather north. I will ride dragons against that darkness. I need queens and kings to guard lands behind me. A council of 6 north, south, Reach, Riverlands, Stormlands, Dorne, shall rule together. Iron Islands may join when they renounce reaving. Vale may choose once boy Lord Aaron comes of age. Debate raged until dawn. In end, exhaustion favored hope. A conclave formed. Sansa Lady of Winterfell, Margaery Lady Paramount of Crownlands and Master of Grain, Stannis Lord Marshal of Stormlands, Garland Tyrell sits for Reach while Loras recovers, Prince Quentyn Martell for Dorne, Edmure Tully for Riverlands, Tyrion named Master of Coin, Davos Master of Ships, Brienne sworn First Knight of the new White Guard, whose charter forbade taking up arms save to defend the defenseless. Daenerys held no crown, yet she commanded sky. She would ride north with dragons, unsullied, and Dothraki. She invited all able to fight for Dawn. Bran released ravens across realm, black snow flurry. Winterfell began forging dragonglass swords from dragonstone shipments. Manderley forges glowed night and day. Deep winter breathed across haunted forests north of Wall. Jon Snow gazed upon shimmering sheet of ice where once gate stood, cracks spider-webbed luminous blue. He touched black-edged dragonglass dagger at belt. Beside him, Tormund stamped frost. Hope the pretty queens send more than paper birds, the wildling grumbled. Far overhead, 3 dragon silhouettes rode cloud cover, wings beating thunder. Jon smiled grim. They come, he said, and with them the world. In King's Landing, laborers dismantled twisted iron throne, melting each blade into plowshare and pickaxe. Children too young to recall fealty hammered rivets under Tyrell overseers. Streets once choked by corpses now bustled with bakers kneading wheat stony shore farmers shipped. Garland supervised orchard planting along Blackwater embankments. Sansa's envoy Lady Lyanna Mormont inspected orphan barracks for proper bedding, her voice sharper than any master-at-arms. Margaery visited hospitals daily, sleeves rolled to elbows, helping Maester Franken set splints. Citizens called her the blooming wolf. She laughed, returning, "A wolf blooms to hide its bite." At dusk she wrote letters. One to Olenna, describing council victories. One to Robb's memory, penning each triumph and each doubt. One to Bran for dream counsel. "When will I know peace?" He returned cryptic verse. "Peace is arrow between beats of heart. Fly with it." She puzzled nights until one dawn, watching Tom and Feed Street kittens outside Red Keep Gardens. She realized peace might be momentary breaths strung like garlands across years of work. Daenerys' army assembled at Queen's Crown to march beyond the wall. Winter winds tore at banners. Her unsullied-eyed snow uneasily. Dothraki children touched flakes in wonder. Drogon perched atop old watchtower, shaking frost like sparks. Sansa rode north to present symbolic key of Winterfell. Margaery accompanied, cloak lined thick. On windswept hill they met Jon Snow, Lord Commander, and his brother Bran. Ghost padded between wolves of reel and sigil. Nightfall painted sky green with aurora. Dragons roared inside kaleidoscope. Jon kneeled before Daenerys, but she lifted him. "Stand. You guard the world's true wall." She turned to Sansa, "Margaery, the shield down here is yours." They clasped hands. Dragon, wolf, rose. Months melted into blur of ice battles, supply lines, council quorums. The Night King's legions clashed with dragons above lakes of shattered moonlight. Valyrian steel rang northern songs. Desert screamers wielded obsidian rocks in spinning arcs. Margaery remained south, yet her hands guided flow of grain, timbers, healers north each moon cycle. She spent nights at maps, mornings amid fields, midday before ravens reading casualty counts. She felt war in marrow though no arrow marked her skin. When word arrived, cold dawn hushed thick, that Jon Snow fell at last hearth driving dragonglass dagger into ice heart of ancient walker, that the Night King shattered under combined flame of Drogon and Rhaegal, she wept where no one saw. The war for Dawn was won at staggering cost. Drogon wounded, Rhaegal dead, Daenerys burnt scarred but alive. Bran's spirit flickered, tethered to ravens. Tormund lost an arm. Davos buried sons. Yet dawn came. Years later, Children in crownlands chase each other through fields where once wildfire devoured armies. They sing. Rose and wolf, wolf and rose, thrones are many, river flows. Dragon burned, the shadow cold. Dawn has broken, stories told. In newly built Parliament House, carved oak table shaped as seven-pointed star hosts rulers who were once warriors. Sansa grown wise beyond winters, Margaery robed in green-gray, Garland father of vineyards and garrisons, Edmure calm fisher statesman, Quentyn scholar of Sunwater, Arya sometimes drifting in from seas to speak of strange west. Tommen studies with maesters, a gentle boy with lion doll patched many times, sewing needle of Margaery's design. Daenerys returns each spring to visit graves of those lost. Regal buried beneath Weirwood in Winterfell Grove. She kneels beside Margaery, Sansa, Jon, raised Lord of Winter beyond politics. And together they plant row on row of winter roses, petals streaked red like memory of snow on blood. Peace is fragile arrow. They know storms will come. But each night, bells in King's Landing ring not for doom but for curfew of silence where citizens sleep under sky free of fear. Ships carry grain between ports. Ravens carry votes. Far north, wildlings build cairns and raise goats. Far south, Dorne's water gardens echo with laughter. In spring council year 10, Bran, now called the Watcher, opens eyes sightless yet searing and tells assembly. The river of years flows swift. Our task is to keep its banks from eroding. Build bridges, not dams. They nod wolf, rose, dragon, stag, trout, sun. Afterward, Margaery cloaks shoulders against cool breeze. Walks parapet of rebuilt Maegor's holdfast. She touches rough stone where Robb's memory lingers. She closes eyes and hears him. Hoofbeats on frost, laughter under heart tree. She smiles, steady. The story has not ended. Nothing ever does. It runs like river to mouth to sea to clouds, cycling. She snaps thorn from rose in wall garden, pricks finger, feels sharp life. A child passes with wooden direwolf toy. She kneels, hands thorn to child. Plant this far from others. Give it space to grow strong. Child nods, runs off. Margaery rises, gazes west where sunset gilds water bronze. For first time since chains bit wrists, she breathes without counting pains or hopes. Breath simply is. Sea wind in, peace out. And on horizon, gull cries echo promise of mornings yet to bloom. In quiet bedchamber of updated Red Keep, now Parliament House, she unrolls last letter she will write to Robb, ink glistening amber. Beloved king who reawakened spring in my blood. Today children laugh in streets once slick with terror. Wolves guard walls beside roses. Dragons sleep without nightmare. We have broken the wheel as you dreamed in half-spoken campfire confessions. I carry you in each law I draft, each grain cart I sign, each lullaby I sing to Tommen who will never know cages. The North remains free, so too the Reach. Yet we meet in circle, not line, and dawn lingers longer for it. Bran says rivers always change shape. Let them, let us. Your memory is bark of oak at heart of grove. Time may bend branches, but trunk stands. I close now, for bells ring to celebrate first harvest of unified lands. Grain enough for any winter. You would smile that cautious smile and wonder how long it lasts. I say as long as we choose to feed roots. Sleep well, my king. In every rose petal fluttering across Winterfell snowdrifts, you breathe. Yours still and always, M. She seals parchment, places in chest carved of weirwood, among pledges and petals. She snuffs candle, leaving moon to silver room. And somewhere beyond city walls, shepherd boy hums tune of rose and wolf while planting thorn cutting beneath newborn apple tree. The arrow of peace hums through dark, thudding soft into earth that has forgotten fear, but not the cost of its forgetting. And night drapes gentle wings across 7 kingdoms newly born. Dragon shadow, direwolf howl, rose blossom, each note part of a symphony still writing itself beneath patient stars.